So maybe to kickstart, Kelvin, you want to share, have you done anything to your portfolio? Sell more Tesla, buy more Tesla, or it seems like a lot of people are concerned. Welcome back, everybody, to episode 4 of the Backholder Pod. Today with me, it's the same 4 people, Chiking, Eric, Kelvin, and Bunti. So just to update you guys on the markets thus far, I think the S&P 500, the SPY, has been up 1.37% for the last 5 days, and the QQQ, which is the Nasdaq equivalent, is up 2.22%. So I think for now, Eric is in the lead because Eric has been constantly touting since the first episode that we kind of found a momentary bottom, while Kelvin, me, and Bunti we look like those kind of toxic bears of the market thus far. But before we actually head on to the discussion, please remember to help smash the like button. We tend to get a lot of views on our videos, but I don't know why we have so little likes and so little subscribers. But anyway, I think before we actually kickstart into this entire episode, we wanted to add in this small element into every single episode. So wherever all of us are comfortable, we'll go around sharing what we have done with our portfolio in the last 5 days or so. So it will kind of be a weekly update to really glean some insights on what each of us are thinking. So maybe to kickstart, Kelvin, you want to share, have you done anything to your portfolio? Sell more Tesla, buy more Tesla, or it seems like a lot of people are concerned.
Okay, I just need to say again, I did not sell. I'm still holding. I did not become bearish. I'm just presenting the risk as I've mentioned in the video lah. So yeah, I'm still holding lah. As for what I added this week, I didn't really add this week, but last week I added some Apple lah. When it was a bit cheaper. I keep selling options as usual. Even though the options got a bit more in the money due to all the rallying going on this week, so I'm a bit scared now. So that's all for this week lah.
So for your options, are you intending to roll, or are you keeping just waiting for expiry?
So I did sell one for Tesla. I think it was 3 weeks expiry. At around $200. So Tesla now is at $195. I think I just let it continue on first lah. If it gets called away, then get called away lah. Yeah, I still have 3 weeks to decide lah. I don't need to decide now. Yeah.
Okay. What about Bunti? Have you done anything in the last 5 days?
No, nothing.
What about Eric? Have you done anything in the last 5 days?
Last Friday, no. Last month, actually, I think some of the REITs actually, the local one, actually give me a letter asking me whether I want to what you call that? DRIP, DRP. Yeah, so I subscribed to them lah, a couple of them. That's all.
Okay. Personally for me, I haven't done anything the last 5 days as well, but I did added to Chinese banks, I think 2 weeks ago. So I'm probably gonna make a explanation video on my channel. So if you're interested, you can hit there. But long story short, I basically want to donate to the CCP. No lah, just joking. Jokes aside, it's dirt cheap lah. I have nothing to say. That's my main thesis. It's dirt cheap. I'll explain more in a separate video. So yeah, I think that's about it. That's on our own personal portfolio level. So let's get right into the first topic. I think a lot of people are interested. Everybody is like in this picture now again. Same thing. We're celebrating for a 5% rally after a 50% dip. So even though the S&P 500, the Nasdaq has been up quite significantly, I think the rally were quite strong. And then I'm looking at the S&P 500 is up like 3-4% from the lows of the last 5 days. But if you were to zoom out, I think year to date S&P is still down 15%, Nasdaq is still down 26%. So there was this very interesting debate between Eric and Bunti in our own private chat group, talking about whether the market has bottomed already or not, and then they start drawing a lot of lines here and there, trying to act very smart. But anyway, I think I'll just pass the time over to Bunti to let him make his case on why he thinks the market hasn't bottomed.
Eric, you go ahead.
So I'm basically just looking at this part. When you say that market bottom, right? The first thing that we want to look at is whether or not the index is making like a higher low. So from what I see, the chart here, right, you can see that there's two double bottom here already, and then here is a higher low. Of course, Bunti says that there is a long-term downtrend. Yes, there's a long-term downtrend, but what I see is like there is like sort of a little bit of bullish momentum here. I'm not sure whether it can pierce through or not. So we have a bet on for a bubble tea. I feel good about my odds. I feel good. So far, yeah, I have +1 bubble tea, haven't claimed yet lah. But yeah, so I see a higher low lah. I see a higher low. And yeah, time will tell whether or not it can break through. Anyway, the bet is only on for like December only lah. So by this year, if it doesn't break through the 330, which is this level here, it's pretty high. Yeah. So then I will lose the bet lor.
My comment on this is that first, I'm not a TA expert. I don't know how to draw charts one. I just learned from Kelvin in one of the previous episode that he draw the channel downwards, right? So if my sense on the chart is that if you just zoom out, right, you will see that there's a very clear downward trend. So I believe in trend. Basically, if you talk about like all this TA, like if it going down, then there's tendency that it keep continue to go down, right? And the narrative now is that I think in the past, let's say 6 months or so, is all about the interest rate hike and then tightening the monetary policy or the QT. And this is already, people already know this as it's kind of priced into the share price. But what is not being priced in is that we could be heading into a recession. And if that happens, meaning that the companies that we all invested in, right, for example, their revenue would drop, their operating income would drop. And once that happens, even if the Federal Reserve is cutting rate, it might not be enough to save the market. So I think my short term, by short term, I mean, it could be 1 month, 3 months. This is still considered short term for me, or even 6 months. If we get into a recession, then I think share price can move a lot lower, because when we look at the share price, right, when it create another new low, there's always this tendency. We keep thinking that okay, this might be the bottom already, because we hope that the share price will go up, right? But usually, it's quite easily that they will breach another new low and coming down again. So talking about macro and talking about trends, I think a chance of Eric turn out to be right will be not as high as he thought now. So that's I'll stop here.
What about Kelvin? Whose side are you on now?
I'm on the bearish side. So okay. Let me just show my chart lah,
Okay, the real TA master is coming
Yeah,
out.
man. Let me keep
Hey, take out the fake one. Take out the fake one.
Oh wait, I'm trying to find. Right. So Bunti was referring to this chart where the long-term trend is downwards. And I think Eric is referring to this breakout chart. So there's sort of a wedge going on. Where it break up from this wedge, right? I think so. Right. I think chart can always be manipulated to show your narrative, This is for sure. So I think right now, it has actually went past that moving average already. Whether it can continue or not, in the short term, I believe it has gone through already. I believe it will stay up in December. So for that, Eric, I'm on Eric's side, but on the long term, I still believe that there's the recession thing going on. So long term wise, I still with Bunti lah. So that's one thing. Then the other thing is, I believe that the recession, if got, it will be a mild recession, as predicted by some of the banks lah. So yes, company will miss their earnings, but I think the effect won't be as big. And there's some other chart where the S&P 500 actually recession doesn't really have much impact on the S&P 500 lah. Yeah, so the recession 6 months before, 12 months before, and the 6 months after a recession happens, most of the time the market is able to give positive returns lah. So in the short term, 6 months, right, the market, I believe, might go down. Long term wise, it won't have any effect anymore. So Bunti will be right early next year, but after that, he will stop being right.
Yeah, I think you need to be careful on when we talk about the recessions, because all this chart, right, what they are saying is that if we're already in the recession, okay, so what will happen to the stock market? Because most people will say that, okay, because we are now in the recession, we shouldn't invest in stock. And then slowly the economy get out of recession, and then stock price also go up. And stock price, if quite often it moves ahead So stock price go up first, and then the economy get out from the recession, and everything turned out to be well, right? But that's during the recession. What is the worst period is actually before the recession. Like if you are talking about recession coming in, let's say 2023, it could be late 2023 or even 2024. And then next 6 months could be very painful because we are still at this downward channel, and we are not yet in the recessions, right? So the fact that, okay, this recession is real, once this set in, right, it will have a downward pressure on the stock market now.
So
but if you're already in the recession, I'm not too worried already, because it will be priced in already. Just exactly the same thing as rate hike, right? So now everyone know about the rate hike. The rate hike is already a few round of 75 basis points, and then another, let's say 50 or 25 basis point later, right? This is already, everyone know about it. Like you read the news, you will know about rate hike, even though you don't know what is rate hike before this. But let's say if you just rewind back to, let's say 9 months or 12 months ago, and you ask people like, what are you concerned with? And I would say maybe out of 10 people, only 1 or 2 people will talk about like, okay, it could be, there will be rate hikes in the future. It could happen. Because that time, nobody is looking at these things about rate hike. Everyone just enjoy the low interest rate. So, but once this rate hike become like, okay, it become attentions of everyone, then it will set downward pressure to the stock market. I think it's the same thing with the recession.
Okay. Yeah, then one more chart to prove my bias narrative. This one I think Chicken Genius he shared a while ago. But this chart appeared 1 month earlier already. Basically, it shows that whenever the Fed pivots, the market crashed by more. For this, I think we don't have to worry for now. Worry because this crash was caused by the Fed raising interest rate too fast and too furious. But if you see all of these events, almost none of them were caused by the Fed raising interest rates. So even if there's a recession, like the dot-com bubble was caused by market being overpriced, great financial crisis was caused by the bank crisis, this was caused by major political turmoil, whatever. I think the only one was the double dip recession in 1980s when the Paul Walker was raising interest rate very fast. But that caused a crash because I believe the market didn't have confidence in the Fed to be able to control the inflation. But right now, I think everyone is confident in the Fed. That's why the market believes that the Fed will fix interest rate. So when the Fed say that they will slow down, I think the market will start rallying. In December, I'm with Eric that the market actually passed the 200 moving average. So then in the first half of the year, I believe Punti will be right. Second half of the year, everything is priced in, so market will continue rallying.
Just before the global financial crisis and the dot-com, you look at the Fed chart, right? The short rate actually went up. But it's not like went up like 3 months or 6 months before. It's like 2 years before. It's like because the money is, like, how to say, the economy is getting hotter and hotter. And so Fed fund rate increase. And then there's some lag effect. It could be lagged by 6 months, 12 months, or even 18 months. And then the market crash. So if you look at the short rate, you will see that there's an increase before these two crashes. The before one, I'm not too sure now.
Right. I think those are great sharing. Personally, I'm still overall bearish for now in the medium term. I can't really predict what's going to happen in 1 month, 2 months, or whatever. You look at China, I predict 2 years really still wrong. But that being said, I think I just wanted to share my own narrative. So my turn to start drawing. No, I'm not going to draw anything. Don't worry. I'm just going to show you something. So I just wanted to explain a little bit in terms of like how they have been, what essentially drove the markets, at least the last few days. So it was essentially when Fed came out, Jerome Powell had a speech, and then he said that they're actually around the time to kind of moderate rates, and they are seeing some of the main pointers. Like I think, was it housing that was going down? And I think there was 3 main points or 3 main concerns that he was concerned about. So this is one part. Then on the second part, when you look at how the market is essentially trying to quote unquote price the interest rate for now. So this is where we are at. And after the speech by Jerome Powell, everybody's, I mean, it's quite, we have rather big confidence that it's going to be a 50 basis point hike. So then we will come into here around the 4.25 to 4.5%. So according to the logic where Kelvin was showing the table saying that, hey, after the Fed pivots, then you'll see the crashing in the stock market. So actually, according to the market consensus right now, we are actually only going to peak at the September of 2023. So after that, we are still going to crash for another, I don't know, 10, 15, 20%. Actually, that's a very long time. It means that we are going to drag all the way to 2024. So I think that's
I just want to make a point.
right.
I'm not saying the Fed will crash the market this time. I'm saying that chart earlier I showed, it shows that the market will crash previous time, but I believe that this time it will not crash because there are all different reasons basically.
Right. Okay. So I think from this perspective, right, I also just wanted to show that, hey, at least for now, the market consensus is they will start pivoting at the Q4 of 2023. So there's still quite some time going towards there. And I think the last point I wanted to make is a lot of people are saying that, I think there was this video from Adam Khoo. So Adam Khoo was saying, hey, the market crash is not because the interest rate is high. The market crash is because the pace of increasing interest rate is high. I personally beg to differ. There's this very famous quote from Buffett and Munger. I think their wisdom makes a lot more sense to me, at least for now. Interest rate is actually like gravity to the entire equities market. I think just to cut the long story short and not to get too nerdy with finance, basically they're affecting the risk-free rate, and risk-free rate affects equity risk premium, and then it affects valuations of companies. So regardless of whether if the market is just, or if the Fed keeps increasing, even if it's 25 basis points, they can increase until 10%. Every month increase 25 basis points. If your risk-free rate is at 10%, I don't think valuations of the stock market can be high. I not in any world that I can imagine. So that's just my perspective. So whether they slow down or whether they maintain at the 500 basis or 5% now, it's still going to act as gravity to the whole stock market, which is why I'm still slightly bearish. So as long as the Fed still thinks that they're going to keep bumping up the number, I don't think valuations will be high. So that's just my own 2 cents about it. Yeah, and I look forward to how the bet plays out.
I have a question though, like, do you guys think on December 13th, that's the FOMC meeting, do you think when the result is out, will the market go up or go down?
I think if it's 50 basis points, it'll stay flat. But
yeah, it's actually not too hard to answer this. If you look at the chart that Chicken just showed, right now there's about 80% chance that we'll get a 50, but there's still this 20 basis point that someone is betting on 75 basis point. So it's like standing in between these two outcomes. So once they announce the 50 basis point, market will react positively, a small positive reaction, because there's this 20 basis point now wipe up already. Like there's no chance already, it become reality. But if Fed turn out to hike the rate by 75 basis point, right, it will be a big crash. So because nobody saw it coming, because most will say will agree that we will get a 50 basis point. So my sense is we will get the 50 basis points, hence a small positive reaction to that now.
I think also wanted to put in a caveat. If there is minutes that comes out or anything, any Fed personnel comes out and starts saying that, oh, they think that they're uncomfortable with the rate, and then now the forward projection become after December is another 50 basis point, it might actually tank the market, because it's always forward looking, so that's just another caveat. But if not, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, one more caveat after another caveat is that actually now I think less and less people paying attention to the 50 basis point or 25 basis point. I think the attention has shifted towards like how what's the ultimate level that they will maintain at. So say for example, they can hike 75 basis point 2 more round and then bring it up to 5.5 and just keep 5.5 for 6 months, right? Versus they just do a 25 basis point in December and then just fix there. So it will be something like about 4% and fix there for 6 months, right? I think these two outcomes will be very different, because that's what level that they are keeping at and wait for the inflation to come down. I think this level will play a much more important role in determining how much return in the stock market.
Actually, I really feel that there's quite a few moving parts. I'm quite surprised that Munti thinks that, it's quite easy to predict. I feel that it's very difficult to predict. Even Fed themselves, they also cannot predict like what are they going to do like when the time comes, like they have some previous YouTube videos that show previous the Fed chair, I say, oh, I think we will, keep at this Fed rate and all. Then, but by the time that year roll around, right, they are actually totally different. So I think we have to keep an eye on the inflation, shipping costs, and all those other factors, right? They are moving in the economy. Obviously, the stock market will also affect his decision here and there. So I think quite a few factors, and also the tone, right, which they deliver the message, whether are they hawkish or dovish. I think the market reads a lot into it, like analyze the whole speech and everything. Their YouTube channel, they're set up, they have a live segment to analyze the speech as it comes out. So it's like basically just telling you how to position yourself better. So I think this is really but as a long-term investor, I don't really care. Like short term, I'm pretty bullish. That's why we have the bet, ma. That's why I say that I see a double bottom. I see a higher low being made. So that's my position for like short term. Mid term, I agree with Bunti. There will be a lot of pressure coming into the upper end of the channel. But once we break through that channel for some weird reason, right, then I think the trend might have turned to bullish. Yeah, but I don't know lah. I mean, I cannot see the future, but all I'm abusing is my luck against Bunti.
Yeah, let me comment on the easy predict part. I need to clarify on that. So to predict where the economy is heading, say for example, what's the GDP, when is the recession, and so on, right? All this macro stuff, I think is hard. That is the hard part. The one that I say is easy to predict is number one, let's say the December FOMC meeting, how like do we get a 25, 50? This one is easy to predict because like I say, right, we will get a 50 basis point. How do I know? Because I'm looking at the probability. And why the probability is a good guidance is because this is the market implied. Like if you disagree with that rate, right, you can bet against it. And say, for example, now only 20% of the people believe that we will get a 75, and you think we will get a 75, and you bet 75 will be the outcome, right? You actually can bet $1 and win like $3 or $4. So something like this. But this one, maybe the size of the bet cannot be small one. This is like Fed Fund futures. And then secondly, when I say it's easy to predict the outcome, is because they are this small proportion, like 20% of the chances is betting towards the 75 basis point. And once we get that right, we get the 50 basis point right. So that's what proven that those who bet on the 75 basis point is wrong. So the market will turn out to be positive. It's just like looking at the implied probability and see what's the outcome, and then decide like, okay, is the outcome is a positive surprise or negative surprise. And based on what we are seeing it now, I think high chances is that we will get a small positive surprises, and that's why the positive reaction is there. So this is talking about like that day movement. I'm not talking about like, okay, it's easy to predict where the economy is in December or early next year, something like that. So need to clarify what are we talking about. Yeah,
it's the same thing lah. If you say it's easy to predict that day movement, right? We have recorded this. You say there'll be a small positive if it is a 50 basis point, right? Let's see that day, how the indexes settle. I seriously, I don't think it's so easy to predict.
With the two caveats, I would join in the bet also though, if like the two caveats.
This one no need to bet already. We already bet the
right. I think also one thing about this kind of macroeconomics discussion is you only can see now. I mean, the world is we are in a globalized arena. It's very hard to follow what other countries or what are the different policies as well, which brings me to my next point actually. So I think in the previous episode, we talked about a China protest, specifically about the Foxconn factory. So I think from Apple's production point of view, we were saying that, hey, there are a group of people or workers that were mistreated, and then they had their bonuses or their salaries being I don't know, there was basically some cock up in between. And just last weekend, I think it morphed into something even bigger. So I think some context for those of you who are not following. So I think in China, one part of Xinjiang, I think it's called Uranqi, recently had a fire incident in one of the buildings, and that building or that community was in lockdown for the last 90 or 100 days. So then there were videos circulating out into the public and then posted on all Western media stating that there were fire trucks trying to go into the space and trying to put out the fire, but they were blocked by many of all these quarantine issues like fences, bars and whatnot. And they tried to spray the water up into the high building, but they couldn't reach. So long story short, it's basically a mismanagement of the environment and the facilities, which caused this problem. And then after that, there was a huge mayhem and a big hoo-ha in multiple states, in like 50 over universities. People were showing signs of protest, talking about how they want to remove COVID-0 and stuff. So I'll just play a very short clip from one of the Western media and basically where they aggregate many of these videos.
In the southwestern city of Chengdu, protesters demand freedom. Freedom of press, they chant, freedom of speech. In the central city of Wuhan, where COVID began, they break down the fence that kept them quarantined. And in the western city of Urumqi, they fly the flag and demand the end of lockdowns. Nationwide protests.
Okay, I'm just going to share some of the clips here. So actually, if you go onto Twitter, there's a lot more. I think there are hundreds of clips being circulated around. I think I'm the China bull here. So I think for the three of them, I think only Bunti has a small percentage position in Chinese stocks as well. I just wanted to get from the three of your perspective, after you see this whole thing develop in front of you in real time, do you have any thoughts? Or if you want to ask me any questions, I'm happy to take it as well. But I'll just pass the airtime over. Maybe to Eric, what was your initial reaction and what was going through your mind?
Yeah, Chicken, you remember you shared that one of your friends, I don't know whether it's acquaintance or friends, said that they were there, right, at the protest, and then suddenly somebody shouted, down with Xi Jinping, down with CCP and all these things. Yeah, so it's then your friend started to run away. So it's not like the whole mob is thinking the same way, or they were just there to like take a video and things like that, see what's going on.
So I think just to clarify, that's not my friend. I actually checked in with one of my I would say acquaintances, because actually it's the person that reached out to me before all this happened. So because I was a Chinese investor and the person also invests in China and he's in Hong Kong and then he went to China as well. So I had that quote unquote connection. So I think before that, I think there were many accounts online. So there are always two sides to a story, right? So the Western media side is where they show you all this protests and how crazy many of these developments are. And then on the other side, there are also some TikTok accounts. There are some accounts from various sources stating that actually it wasn't that bad. And the picture was only painted halfway. So it was not the full picture. So to clarify the story that Eric gave, I can post the link to the video later on. It was basically this reporter. She was based in New Zealand, but she's from China, because you can hear from the way she speaks, she's from China. So she was basically saying that when she checked in with her friends at Chengdu. So Chengdu was the place where they started shouting Xi Jinping 下台 and 共产党下台. In English, it means asking Chairman Xi to step down and CCP to step down. So any sane human being that actually studies Chinese politics, like to a certain, at least to a small extent, would know that people, at least for now, in China, don't dare to do something so brazen, because it's really quite crazy to ask CCP to step down and Chairman Xi to step down. So many of the videos that all these Western media share, so saying that they don't want to abide by the health code, they don't want to do those ART testing, whatever, that I believe, because those are targeted towards policy actions. But targeting towards the chairman himself and targeting, basically asking the whole party to step down, I think that's a little bit too far. So then they were saying that when suddenly there's this one or two dudes that suddenly start shouting, oh, Chairman Xi to step down, they only took picture of those people that were congregated there. Then there was another bunch of people that was actually running away because they didn't want anything to do with that shouting. So the backstory was they had this basically like a Facebook invite, but it's not Facebook, so it's WeChat invite saying that, oh, they want to pay tribute to the people. They want to go there and basically also kind of rally together and say that we want some freedom, or we want to express some concerns about the policy. Then when they reached there, suddenly they started shouting Chairman Xi to step down, and they all started running away because that was not what they signed up for. So I think that was just another perspective. The credibility of this story, it's actually being accounted for on multiple different platforms by multiple people. So I think that there is certain credibility to it, but of course, people can say that it's propaganda. It might be propaganda from CCP saying that it's not that bad, but I guess to each its own, and be skeptical on both sides as well. So that's just the background story on that. Yeah. Personally, I don't really know what exactly is going on because let's not forget China is an extremely big place, and there's too many cities. Sometimes there's just that rowdy feel, and then they just they extrapolate the whole thing and then just blow everything out of proportion. So that's just something that I wanted to caution people when consuming those type of content. But yeah, maybe I'll pass the time to Kelvin. What do you think of this whole China protesting?
I think this is just like a one-off thing lah. So I think it's like if you see Singapore last year, right? Even after 1 year of lockdown, some people who were locked out in their house were becoming a bit xiao. Like they were throwing chairs out of their house, that kind of thing, shouting from their house, that kind of thing. So if you were to lock down in your house for 3 years, right, all your frustrations would just come out lah. Then I think that prompted the Chinese government to have a press conference on that day, right, or the next few days later, saying that they will start considering to reopen soon, which should be as early as next year, March or something. And to help with that, they will have to do the elderly vaccination or kind of thing to speed it up, I guess. So in a way, this catalyst is a good thing. But hopefully no one got hurt.
Yeah, I hope so too. And there was this discussion about whenever there's something such a big scale, I mean, from China's perspective, they always say that there's this 外部影响, basically foreign interference. They're saying that other people or other countries are trying to stir stuff internally. But I beg to differ. I think there are definitely people within a bunch or within China that is frustrated, they're aggressive, they are extremely uncomfortable with the situation. That I agree. But I would just like to say that every time we see like central government putting out a policy position saying that, they have a 20-point plan recently, I think it was a few weeks back, saying that how they want to release or relax some of these measures. I think a very big problem in China is central government can have a certain direction, but it's the local governments and the local officials, when they start taking guidance, they add in their own stuff. So, like in Chinese, it's 加盐加醋. So a certain policy direction come down, suddenly on the ground level, it becomes another way of functioning. So a little bit like very hierarchical organizations. The top says something, and then when it goes down to the bottom, it becomes a second thing. So I think that's one of the concern in terms of like executing policies. And I think they could have improved a lot better. And I think within the last 2 to 3 years, there are a lot of rooms for improvement. I think that's just my 2 cents on that as well. Because of the recent protests on weekends, during the weekends, right? Things transpired, and I received a lot of comments actually, saying that how can you invest in such a crazy country? They're locking down people and they're removing human rights, and it's an authoritarian country, yada 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 yada. I think just to set the record straight, right? I'm investing in the company. I'm geographically agnostic, so I don't really care. As in, I try to separate my values with my investment, like the things that I invest in. Because at the end of the day, if you really want to stand on the moral high ground to say that, I only invest in countries that are extremely good, they only do good to the world, right? I think I'll be a little bit skeptical about that. That's one. Number two, if you don't want China exposure, you better don't hold the S&P 500, because you go down the list, the top 10 companies, Apple has China exposure, Amazon gets their stuff from Alibaba, Tesla has China exposure, even Berkshire has China investments. So when you want to stand on the moral high ground to try to abdicate responsibility and scold people online, I would just caution you to look in the mirror as well. I think that's just that. So I think with that...
I also want to add on. If you want to talk about moral high ground, just look at what US is doing. Like, they're going around giving freedom to countries that don't need freedom, right? Right.
This I don't dare comment, because
right. No countries is perfect lah. So you have to separate your investment to invest in a company versus your whatever views with the whatever your political view is lah. So it's a separate thing lah. That's what I feel.
No, on that note, right, Kelvin, would you like, let's say of a very profitable company growing at like 30% annually, right? Like then give out 10% dividend, make you a huat kueh in 10 years, right? Would you invest in the type of company if if they are actually a vice company. Like for example, right, they sell what you call that drug, marijuana or something like that.
Weed companies,
Weed companies
or even
are
casinos,
cigarettes.
cigarettes, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. What will be your stance on this? Like, what is your take? If it's like really so 文文假逼婚, right? Like no matter what, people need to smoke and drink, right? Even in recession, maybe they smoke and drink even more. So you have bigger dividends. Would you consider investing a small portion?
Yeah, I wouldn't exclude it lah. Like I think there are already existing, what is they called, marijuana companies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and even like the Lockhart Martin, they
Yeah.
are making stuff that kills people, right? So as long as it makes money, as long as you are okay with that, then I think it's fine lah. But I'm sure people will go and spin this out of control all over again lah.
Like, are you okay with that? Like personally,
I wouldn't exclude it lah. That's what I would say. So
okay.
that's it.
Yeah, I think the keyword here is whether the business are legal or not. So
Legal,
for example,
they are legal.
yeah, for example, if we are talking about illegal stuff, of course we wouldn't
No,
touch, right?
not
Okay. So then
illegal.
secondly, we talk about legal stuff, but it could be not so moral from some people's perspective. So I think I have the same view as Kelvin. I have no problem investing in these companies. Like what Kelvin just said, I will not exclude it, but I will consider it in the sense of, let's say it is cigarette companies. And we know that this trend towards like discouraging people from smoking is getting more and more strict, right? For example, I think some countries already say, okay, if you are under a certain age, right, you cannot smoke. Let's say because after 10 or 15 years, the country will ban people from smoking. So you know that there's a limited runway when it comes to their business because their business is deemed as unhealthy for people. So these kind of things you need to put into consideration to see how long is the runway. But if you think that the runway is long, say for example, any food and beverage companies, they have all this high sugar content, and sugar content is really bad for our health. But nobody talk about like, oh, this company is not moral. So sometimes the moral and not moral is also depends on individual, and people can spin out of it and make their own narratives. But we can only base on like whether it is legal or not. And then we do our assessment on whether how long is that runway. That's my take on this.
Yeah, so for example, like McDonald's, many people invest in McDonald's, right? Berkshire Hathaway invest in McDonald's, but their high carbo thing, their high sugar thing is like literally killing people, right, with diabetes and stuff. So if you want moral high ground, you have to avoid McDonald's. You know, for Nestle, right, they make milk powders. If you see some of the stuff they did in the past, right, they were actually quite cruel, right? So yeah, if you, I think, yeah, so you have to see whether you are okay with me or not lah. For me, I'm fine with the fact that all these are legal stuff. It's just that there are some of them are a bit shady lah. So I wouldn't exclude it, but I have to see a bit more.
Yeah, I think that there's one more topic that's closely related to this, which is the ESG investing. So environmental, social, and governance. So I think this is getting more and more popular nowadays. And there are people who say, oh, I'm not going to invest in carbon companies, say no to energy companies. So they want to go green, right? Everything just green, buy Tesla and don't buy oil companies, for example. And then when it comes, when the oil shortage or energy shortage comes, then you know that you cannot live without energy. Also another problems, right? So all this narrative will shift back towards say, okay, actually it's fine to invest in energy because we need energy. So all this narrative will keep on changing, one.
That's one last thing. You think Tesla is very, very green, man? You see how they get their battery stuff. Yeah, I wouldn't comment too much. If you
please comment more.
There are there are like Johnny Harris and his reporter friends who show that EV companies, the way they extract like nickel, cobalt, or whatever, are not actually green at all. And some of the companies, the way they are able to get such cheaply all these materials is because they are like using child labor or whatever. So, but there's another company lah, and Tesla is involved in those companies lah. So are you going to avoid Tesla because of that? So there's something to think about though. Batteries are not clean by itself already.
I think I also wanted to just draw the line on why I picked up this topic, right? you want to stand on the moral high ground, it's fine. Like if you want to your own moral compass, you want to imbued it into your own investment journey and how you invest. That's your problem. I'm perfectly fine with people that wants to run those sort of topics and how they want to invest. I think the issue comes is when you are applying your moral compass to other people as well, but at the same time, you're also hypocritical. Means you hold the S&P 500 and then this list of companies that are also debatable. Don't tell me the top 500 US companies all of them has no issues. I think in fact, I would argue that all of them are kind of somehow or another linked to some problems. It's just that you don't actively go and look out for it. So with that context, and then you come out and say that, oh, you guys are crazy. Why are you supporting such a regime and yada yada yada. At the end of the day, I think for the number one rule of investment is don't lose money, and number two is everybody wants to make money. So I come from that more simplistic view. So instead of that, you want to go around talking about all these things. It's good to talk for fun, but when it gets heated and you start scolding people and pull people down, I think that's getting a little bit uncalled for. So that's just how I wanted to end this whole topic. And I think that just the last topic I wanted to go through was really this recent exchange between Elon Musk and Apple. So I'll just share his Twitter timeline. Something that he was going around talking to Tim Cook and Apple. So basically, I think there was this recent tweet on the November 29th. So Elon Musk started saying that Apple has basically stopped advertising on Twitter. And I think the second line is a little bit uncalled for, saying that do they hate free speech in America? The implied meaning is that Twitter is the only platform that provides free speech, but I guess it's a debate for another time. And then he tagged Tim Cook saying that what's going on here. And furthermore, after that tweet, he actually followed up with a few tweets. He retweeted this saying that Apple, there were instances where Apple censored some other companies and he was trying to rally for more support here. And then there was also another tweet that says that Apple has also threatened to actually withhold Twitter from its app store, and there's a 30% tax. So you can see there's actually a barrage of comments. So Elon Musk didn't just tweet once and didn't do anything about it. So he went on and on and on and on. Then after that, I think just recently, if I were to scroll up, you can see that on the 1st of December, he actually took video of where this that appears to be Apple's beautiful HQ, and he said that good conversation with Tim Cook and they resolved the misunderstanding. So long story short, that's what essentially transpired between Tim Cook or between Apple and Twitter. So I just wanted to since we have 3 Tesla shareholders here, I just wanted to see how you guys read this entire situation.
I think these free speech things, I think Apple, they have a stand on this stuff. So I think their stand is that, okay, they have certain values, say, for example, all these privacy values and so on, right? And say no to hate speech and so on. So they will literally like screen all this if they think that your apps or your content, like especially apps, because every apps that on board iOS, they have to screen through by Apple, they have to approve it, right? So if they think that certain apps is promoting hate speech and so on, they will just say no, and you cannot onboard into their platforms. So they have a very strong view on like stopping people from encouraging more hate and so on. So this is their stand, right? And for Twitter, I think Twitter has been on iOS for quite some time already. It's just that now after Elon Musk took over the platforms, and then he made quite a number of changes. Say, for example, he's unbanned quite a number of peoples. Those people, I don't know who are they. I mean, there are a long list of people, including Donald Trump, right? But some of them could be those who give up some hate speech in the past, and hence it is banned. So now with Elon Musk bringing them all back, so the problem is like, how can we regulate Twitter? And on top of that, Twitter actually laid off quite a number of people, and there's not enough people to do all this content screening to make sure that there's no hate speech and so on. So I think there will be some tension between like Twitter and also the advertiser. Basically, the advertiser want the platform to be more controlled and censor things that they don't like. And whereas for Elon Musk, he want Twitter to be like really free speech. Anyone can be there as long as it's legal to say something. Then you are allowed to say something, although your opinions might not be popular, right? So that's the tensions that's ongoing. But looking at these situations, I don't know. I hope that Twitter will stay on iOS. If really Twitter is banned from iOS, I think it's bad for both sides. So that's my take.
I think Elon is just being Elon. It's not the first time he has this kind of weird outbursts going on. So I just view it as a good advertisement for Tesla kind of thing. and yeah, I think both he and Tim Cook settled it quite fast, so that's good, I guess. Yeah, but knowing him, he will go and stir shit another place next week again. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah lah, same here lah. I know that Elon, he loves to stir shit lah, but he's like the chief shit stirrer. Like he's a very good engineer. He's a visionary CEO, very good leader. But there's also cons to him, right? He likes to stir shit, you know. Basically he jumps to conclusions sometimes a little bit too fast. Like he hasn't heard anything from Tim Cook. There's like, oh, what's up, Tim Cook? You know, what else did what else does Apple cancel? What else has Apple censored? You know, it just jump to conclusion. Like this reminds me, it reminds me that he is also a human being just like us. He has his shortcomings. He has his flaws. He's prone to this kind of outbursts, like on Twitter, where he gets a lot of reach. Right, he have like 100 over million followers. So when he have this kind of outburst, people tend to be quite affected by him, particularly those shareholders that recently invested in Tesla. Recently, I mean the past 2 to 3 years. So they are actually quite affected. Like, wow, how come this CEO like that one? Like every time he shoot his mouth off, then the share price go down 7%, go down 8%. You know, then they. Yeah, because I'm in a Tesla chat group, so I know that there are people that are very affected by him. But I really don't know how else to say. Like Elon Musk is a person just like you and me. Like, I mean, you don't look at Chiking like that. He looks so nice, but maybe he's in private. He's like, don't know. I'm not saying that
I have
he
no
is lah.
comments.
I am just saying that. I mean, everyone got their good and bad side. Right? Yeah. So don't think that everyone is a saint. Like, yeah, that includes Elon Musk. So nothing really much to say about it, except that I feel that it's a monologue by him all the way. I don't think Tim Cook ever said anything.
Actually, this one also shows like the power of media. So in the past, right? Let's say we are not talking about Twitter, we're just talking about like news agency. So there's all these new agency, they are banded together and then they choose what to report. So say for example, like, okay, Bill Gates is bad, right? So he treat his staff bad. And then if the media, because of some influence, maybe because they get some advertisement from Microsoft, say for example, this is not fact, I just throw something out. And then they agree that they shouldn't make a negative coverage on Bill Gates. And then nobody will hear about it. Because when anyone reads newspaper, these are all same group of people that agree on what to report and what not to report. But now what Elon want to create is that he want Twitter to be really open. Anyone can create an account and then can actually publish something. And then if something is good and that people have the credibility and people will see such content. So it makes the entire, all this journalism plus media become more like a level playing field that everyone can contribute. So it's not so much about like control by small group of people anymore. So this is what he meant by free speech, at least one of the elements.
Bunti, I want to ask you, right? What do you think about the chicken genius? He recently tweeted something about like 100 powerful men control the world, right? And Elon Musk is looking to break this narrative. And then he sort of like, it's a little bit of like conspiracy theory. Like, you want to, break out of this matrix, like let's, do him in, something like that. Then he said he's worried for Elon Musk.
I agree with you. It's like conspiracy, but I also agree with the statement that he said, which is that this media is really like controlled by like small group of people. This is definitely true because you see all the powerful people, what they bought after they become successful, right? They will buy media companies. Say for example, Jeff Bezos also has his what is it like Washington Post, right? Then now Elon bought Twitter. So all these powerful people, they will want to control not the entire media, but at least a dominant player in the media. Even Jack Ma also bought some I think South China
South China
CMP, right? South China Post. I don't know what was the name already. So I think all these successful people, they want to have a voice, and how they're going to do it is to own like media companies. So and they all have the similar kind of goal when it comes to media coverage. So they tend to like follow each other and then report the same things. Sometimes I think that it's a bit similar to YouTuber. Like you see one YouTuber post a video on this topic and then the others will follow. I think they all operate in a similar fashion as well. So if there's coverage and then people will read about it and then they will search other news and this thing will become trending. But if nobody publish, right, then it will stay as quiet and there are many things happening around the world that nobody talk about it. And I think this is as a part of because of how all these media operate.
I think the most simple baseline is whoever controls the narrative controls the world. So whoever creates or whoever gains more clout and can move people to think a certain direction, they basically win, because at the end of the day, it's all a narrative thing. I mean, not to blame the Americans or whatever. It has worked for the last 100 years. So it's probably going to continue working. And last time, because of the lack of media, I mean, by last time, I mean like thousands of years ago. So it was basically like, I mean, if you look at dynasties, it's the king that controls everything. But now when it becomes like mass media, where you have Twitter, you have Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, they are the ones that are basically the kingmakers. So that's just my 2 cents on it. But I think there was this interesting discussion that came out that I was more interested as someone that studies businesses, right? Elon Musk started talking about Apple's 30% take rate. And there was this tweet that came out from Joseph Carlson. So I don't know whether you guys follow him, but he's basically also a big YouTuber. I think he has 200,000+ subs. And he shared a Twitter thread. So I'm just going to read it because it's quite a simple one. He says that I put content on Twitter and Twitter monetizes it and it keeps 100% of the ad revenue. I put together an iOS app and sell services on the App Store, and Apple only keeps 30% of the revenue. So if you look at a take rate by the different companies, Twitter is 100%, Instagram and Facebook is around 45 to 100%, Twitch is 50%, YouTube is 45%, and Apple is 30%. And then Elon Musk says that Apple has an unfair position, or Apple has an unfair policy towards developers or creators on that from that, because he says that it's a 30% tax on everything. I wanted to get Kelvin's perspective on this because he's a creator, I'm a creator, we are taxed by Google in a sense. So what do you think of it?
Like so as a programmer, I upload games. Apple, Google takes like 30%. I forgot how much was Google. I know Apple is definitely 30%. But I think Apple has reduced down to 15% for profits below $1 million.
Correct.
Above that is 30%. So YouTube is also taking my cut, 45%. Then I take back home. The government take a bit of cut. Okay. So I'm not saying about the government. Okay. So I mean, like, there's no other choice. Like, because these are the biggest platform. If I don't like, there's nowhere else I can post I can't just post in what Bilibili, right? So the only choice is this. So
I'm quite sure Bilibili actually do have quite I mean, at least the Chinese users is quite, I think they have more people than Twitter, just saying, but okay.
So I think this week I saw a video by the Woke Salaryman. They say something quite interesting. So they say that we choose the billionaires are there because we choose them to be billionaires basically. So what that means is like Google is doing well right now, Apple is doing well right now, and their bosses are billionaires because we all collectively decide that we want to use their products. So so since everyone decide that they want to use YouTube, they want to use Twitter, and this gives them the power to charge however they want. So if you think that if you have a better platform, then just go create your own, right? Go create your own YouTube. But otherwise, I mean, just shut up and keep using more. I mean, the flip side, even though they charge so much, is they are giving something something that's value in return. So for Google, for YouTube, they are blessing all the YouTubers who make good videos. For who is that? For Apple. They are the biggest app store right now. So I would say that this may seem like monopoly, but in return you're also earning money, so you can't really complain.
I want to add on this. I think the last part that you mentioned, that one really make a lot of sense. You need to look at this as a like who are the parties in the transaction and see what are the value adds that was provided. Say for example, we between Twitter and the user, right? The user, they want to post something that can be read by others, and then Twitter is the one that provide all the server and like spread out the information. That's their role, right? So that's the arrangement. So another better example I would say is, for example, Spotify. Like between a user, myself, and Spotify, I pay them a fee and then they deliver me the music. So there's a transaction there. So like they can charge like 100% more expensive as long as I think it makes sense and I like the service, and I will just pay, right? So this is between me and Spotify. But what is different about App Store is that you look at App Store or iOS in this case, right? What are they providing to get that 30%? Because this is not a transaction between Apple iOS with the user. This is actually for whatever apps that is built on within this iOS ecosystem. Say for example, this Spotify transaction that I mentioned, right? I pay let's say $20 to Spotify, and iOS, because this is on their platform, they impose a tax of 30%. They are not like part of the transaction, you know. They are just like the government there, and they say, okay, this is my territory. You do a transaction here, I take a 30% cut. That's why it's called tax. It's not a service. It's not a fee that Apple receive. This is a tax on the transactions. So I think it's quite different when you list down the list of like YouTube taking 45% and so on. It's very different because for YouTube also they have to provide the server and so on. In fact, you can actually upload like one video could be a couple of gigabytes. Who is paying for all this storage and so on, right? So Google is the one, or YouTube is the one that provide all this. So there's a transaction there and there's clear value adds there. Whereas for Apple case, it is not so clear on what's the value add. Basically, what they did is they look at all the apps that is all these companies they want to submit. They will just review the codes and make sure that, okay, maybe security, they pay attention to that, and then make sure that there's no bugs and so on. Like just play a very small role there, and yet they take a 30% cut, which is quite big now. So I think is like what Apple is doing is actually quite bad for the startups. And it makes startups very hard to compete with the bigger one. The bigger one, they have no problem because they have enough revenue and profit to continue to operate. But for the smaller one, this 30%, I think has been complained by many players in the past. Yeah.
But I think to defend Apple a little, they did spend a great deal of time to develop the entire iOS project itself. And to retain users, it's not like, just because you're on the platform, you'll continue using the platform. They have to constantly iterate, they have to spend marketing, they have to make sure that the prestige of the brand is there. And all these are hidden costs, right? I mean, you charge it into the P&L of the company, yes. Apple is earning a great deal of profit, yes, but it takes time. It took Steve Jobs, like he was the quote-unquote visionary that went against Windows, went against Android. He thinks that they are lousy platforms. It shouldn't be open source. And then he took a great deal amount of risk to create where Apple it is today. So then now you are comparing like that, right? You're basically writing off everything behind whatever he did, the risk he took to create the stronghold. And similarly, I think on Kelvin's point, I think it's just if it's a capitalistic system, if you think you can do something better than Apple, I don't know, you create an Orange software and everybody from Apple switch over to Orange, and then Apple will be out of business. And yeah, there you get it. Even whether they tax 30%, 50%, if people don't want your market, developers don't upload, because it's a flywheel, right? It's an ecosystem and there's some network effect over there. So if people, less and lesser users, less and lesser people buy, revenues don't make sense, people won't waste their time there anymore. So I think the underlying assumption is more of if the system is working, as in the capitalistic system is working, people vote with their dollar bills, I think it's fine. But just also a caveat is that I think, because I keep thinking of it from the perspective of like Chinese government, because I'm heavily invested there. At least in the Chinese tech space, there's a very big problem with crowding out competitors and anti-competition. So the last 2 years it has been playing out, and you can see that it's quite real. So at least in the tech space, it's owned by the two people, Alibaba and Tencent. If you don't have the backing of either one of them, your startup or your company is probably going to fail. So, which is why you see all these new up and rising, right? Pinduoduo, JD, Futu, Tiger, all of them are kind of backed by one of the elders or in the tech space. And then that is the tax to come into the tech space. So means you need to give up 10%, 20%, 30% of your equity. You need to have a backing of somebody bigger in order to come in. So that is quote unquote anti-competition, which is why the Chinese government cracked down. But a little bit DT here, or as in it's not really focused there, but I'm just afraid that it comes to a point where it becomes like that. So in future, if you don't have one of the big techs backing you, or you don't have one of the VCs backing you, then you probably can't succeed. So that's just my perspective. So I hope you guys enjoyed the discussion this week. Remember to help smash the like button and also subscribe, because our view to subscriber count, it's crazy. You guys are not showing us face, guys. You guys watch like thousands. We have thousands of views, and then we have like what, 300 subscribers. It's pathetic, guys. It should be the reverse, you know. Should be we have thousands of subscribers and then we get 300 views, not get so many views and then so little subscribers. But I know you guys like to see Kelvin selling his Tesla position. That was one of our highest viewing video. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the discussion. Please tune in weekly. Appreciate your watch time and the support that you have given us thus far. So with that, we'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.